Second into checkpoint 3 was last year's runner-up Andrew Tuckey, who, after a quick refill and brief from his support crew, headed off. Sydney-sider Jono O'Loughlin followed a minute or so later. Meanwhile, race director Tom Landon-Smith was going through the process of calculating when our penalised athletes would be able to resume running. It was a stressful wait for the athletes who were desperate to get back into the race.
Okay, off you go, guys.
Good work, guys. Get on the chin. All about your maximum pace now. Go strong.
Back to the 50 and reaching the Queen Victoria Hospital, and with 22 kilometres left to run, was Lithuanian Andrius Ramonas. He'd extended his lead significantly and looked to have the race already sewn up. Luke Preston had moved up a position to second, but looked to be suffering a little. Next along was Maddie Abel, who too was starting to lose the head in his step. At the 30-kilometre point, still out in front of the women's field, was Emma Ryland, her smile now a grimace. A kilometre behind was Jessica Carroll, with Kiwi Tanya Copeland chasing. At the 57-kilometre mark and still heading the ladies in the 100 was Cassie Scallon, who arrived at the Aquatic Centre checkpoint well ahead of her rivals. In second place, Dong Lee came and went in a flash, knowing that a quick transition through the aid stations would mean easy time made up on the leader. Along the cliff tops at around the 65-kilometre mark, and things were really starting to heat up in the men's field. Our chasers had bridged the gap to Scott, and now it was a pack of 4. A new contender had also emerged, with Yunyang Chao of China in 5th. Kilometre runners still had several hours ahead of them. The first of the 50 competitors was crossing the finish. Andreas had crushed the opposition. Still climbing further steps was Luke Preston. Cramping meant for a hard grind to the top and left it open for someone to emerge from behind and grab second place. In third and moving nicely was Richard Banks, who had powered home and in the final half hour closed the gap to the front quite considerably.
The colliers from Albury who are listening intently to the commentary are going to be super pumped. Luke Preston crosses the line.
Are you alright? Yeah, I'm okay. This dude's got cold hands. Feel his hands.
Down in the valley, and our First Lady was power hiking up the stairs. The distant cheering of the crowd and voice of the announcer echoing through the trees are welcome sounds. Meanwhile, Richard Banks rounded out the men's podium. Eventually crossing the line more than 13 minutes ahead of her nearest rival, and 8th overall, was Emma Ryland.
About 7 seconds.
Flying home in second was Jessica Carroll, who clearly had plenty left in the tank. Rounding out the women's podium was visiting New Zealander Tanya Copeland. Late afternoon brings with it a change in the mood of the mountains. It becomes even more peaceful and the colours more vibrant. But for those still racing, it's not a time to relax. Leading the women in the 100, we now had 2 runners, with Dong Lee and Cassie together along the cliff top. In pursuit was Amy Sproston, who looked to be finding form. But there's still a long way to go.